Alright, so a little while ago, I decided to spend the day reading some Junji Ito. So obviously I had to read Uzumaki. I've read Venus in the Blind Spot and Remina? Not quite sure how you pronounce her name. But overall, a very good time. There were a lot of hits, but also some misses. So we're starting with Uzumaki. So themes of obsession are prominent through like all of these works. And while I did enjoy it, it might have gotten a little repetitive at times, and some of the more notable flaws, specifically like in character work and development and stuff like that, some things that I do value in stories, might not have been the best idea to just binge it all in one day. So essentially, Uzumaki is a masterpiece. First of all, don't ever let me lead you to believe that I didn't adore this story. Starting more or less spoiler free. Spoiler free. I'll let you know when I go into spoilers. Obsession, the breakdown of society. You think this is just some self-contained little thing, and all these moments in the story are just more isolated, and you don't understand the scope of what he is creating until like the halfway point, or maybe even a little further, and you're just like, oh god, this is what we're building to. We are descending into hell through the spirals, through all the spirals. This town is becoming cursed and obsessed with spirals, and it doesn't sound scary at first because like a spiral in the hair, a snail shell. I will never look at a snail the same way again. The smoke and clouds and swarms of insects, and it's just like spirals are everywhere. And then obsession takes hold, and it gets violent and gruesome, and the body horror, and just how everything builds upon each other. Oh my god, it was a delight. Every moment that I'm like, okay, we've overstayed our welcome. We have so much more of this book left to go. There's no way that it can stay fresh and new, and there's no way I'm going to stay invested with all these almost like isolated vignette kind of stories. But I did, and it got better as time went on. Each chapter, save for like the first two, are kind of isolated without too much connections between each other at first. Pretty much the main character is like something happens and it kind of leads them to be in the position to witness the next thing. So in one story, like she gets burned, and in the next story, well, obviously she's in the hospital, so she's there to witness the stuff from the hospital. And they do feel kind of separate and a little jarring at first. Uh, Criticisms being like, does the lore make sense for this story? Not really. Is there character development and work? Well, there's some character work done, but are these like masterfully written characters? No. Could you have spent more time with like interpersonal relationships? Quite honestly, I did care about these characters by the end and their relationships to each other. So the protagonist and her boyfriend and her family and her mother and her father and her brother, like, yeah, I cared about them. I wanted them to be okay, but we really could have spent a little bit more time developing them and their relationships with each other. Do I care about any of that? No, because this was an experience and I loved it. This was a nightmare. This was a nightmare, and nightmares don't work on logic. You don't question the craziness when you're in the middle of a nightmare. You don't question how you got there or why things are happening or the logic about how things are caused and how people are responding. You just roll with it. And that is exactly what this felt like. So, ending spoiler free, I love this. And has anyone checked on this man? Like, is he okay? Does he need someone to talk to? Because he thought this up. Are we sure he's okay? So going into spoilers, I'm not going to go plot point by plot point, but just like my favorite standout moments and standout chapters. The first two are near the top of my list for my favorite of this series, just because it's kind of one story continuing on, and it's just a nice premise. It's the perfect combination of horror, but weird, because it goes full weird. More weird than horror in later chapters. But the first chapter, you have the main character, Kiri, I believe her name is, and her boyfriend, Shuichi? Something like that. And he's just like, the town has been, he's seen spirals everywhere, and his father has is possessed by them. He's obsessed with these spirals. And she's like, you're overreacting. No way it's that bad. He's like, you don't understand. Like, his eyes are rolling in opposite directions. He's obsessed with spiral patterns. He can't eat food if it's not in a spiral. Like, something is messed up. And she's like, no, it can't be that bad. And then we meet him, and it's that bad. And he contorts himself to fit into, like, a barrel of a spiral. And then the next chapter goes into the mother. So he had been, like, more or less abusive, and she has instilled this fear on her, and now she's petrified and terrified of spirals. So with him, it was an obsession. With her, it's a phobia and a fear. And she's like, she can't handle fingerprints looking like spirals. And then she learns that the inner ear, the cochlear whatever in the ear, inner ear, and she wants to, like, stab it out of her. And it is, oh my god, like, there's the tongue. Cut to past Jessica, who had just started reading this. Your eyes are not supposed to do that. I don't think your tongue's supposed to do that either, unless you're a Orochimaru. And apparently, if someone got an obsession with spirals, don't cremate them. Chapter 2, check-in. Just disturbing. Like, my reaction when I turned the page and seen one panel, which is, it's great. Loved it. They're still burning the bodies. It's not smart of them. Like, the imagery is disturbing, and I love it. But I love the references to the, Dragonfly Pond or Lake or whatever it is. So when, repeatedly, how they did not fill in this lake by, like, chapter 4, I don't know. So, person dies, crematorium, smoke goes up, spiral around the town, the ashes fall down into this lake. And then later on we hear about the mosquitoes who came from this lake, and then the chapters with them, which is terrifying and a delight. I loved it. You get the father of our main female character who gets the clay from this lake, and he makes pottery of it. And when he sculpts it in the kiln, you hear the people screaming, and the faces are in the pottery. It just looks like screaming faces within the spirals, and it's terrifying, and I love it. You have the boyfriend who has lost both his parents and is just petrified of everything that's going on, and he's more or less having a breakdown. He's isolating himself, but he's still coming in clutch. Like, every time his girlfriend's in trouble, he's there to stand up, save the day, say it's the spiral's fault, this is what we gotta do. One of my favorite chapters, I think, is Jack in the Box. So this guy's obsessed with Buddy's girlfriend, and he ends up dying in a tragic way, turns himself into a spiral as he's wrapped around a car wheel, but he like jumping out and scaring people. So he leaves her a Jack in the Box, with a clown, it's scary looking. But then the clown Jack in the Box starts talking to her like, I'm coming for you. So she tells the boyfriend, and it's just like, I don't know what to do. And he's just like, well, let's go dig up the corpse and stab it with this stake I just have handy, and maybe that'll take care of it. And she's like, don't you think that's a little bit of an overreaction? And he's just like, after everything we've seen so far, no, you're right. Let's go dig it up. If anything, that's an underreaction. Let's go stab it. And that chapter is both gruesome, terrifying, and hilarious. Like, it's darkly humorous, and I love it. Like, they dig up the corpse, and it springs out and starts following them, and then as, like, it loses his legs and is left, like, a spring from the tire, so he turns himself into, like, a Jack-in-the-Box, and it's hilarious. It's so gross and gruesome. It's funny. It's so gross, it's funny, and I love it. We get a chapter with these houses, the row houses, and how they're going to play into the story. And it's just these little setup moments. So learning about those houses early on, and then you have the story which seems like it's so isolated with the guy turning into a snail, but then how both those elements come back into play later on. I really, really love that. I love how it seems like this is just a one-off, not going to be important to the rest of the series, but it's building upon each other, and those elements come back into play. Oh, I loved it. The hospital chapters specifically also were some of my favorites. So again, you learn about the mosquitoes and the fact that no one has filled in this pond and put like 20 religious relics and temples and shrines and everything on top of it. I don't know how they haven't done that yet. They really should. So the mosquitoes come from the pond and they get bit. Someone gets bit and they go to the hospital because now they're sick. And you have all these pregnant women at the hospital who now have like feel like they have to feed their babies like a mosquito would with blood, and they're killing people. And the main character girl, she sees all this and witnesses, and it's terrible. And then the babies are born, and I'm not even going to talk about that chapter, just because no, like screw that, no, absolutely not. Has anyone checked on Junji Ito and made sure he's okay? Why would he write that with the placenta? And having to put the baby back inside the mother after it had been born? Oh my god, it was gross. I loved it. It was so good. That entire chapter. I wanted to nope out, and I so appreciate the fact that this main character girl, she's just like, not my problem. I got out of there. I made a run for it. I'm not going back. I don't know what happened after they started eating people. And it's just like, we can only assume that whatever horror stuff is happening in that hospital is still going on, because she pieced out. She made a run for it, didn't go back. That's just story over. Horrible things happening, not our problem. We don't have the ability to deal with this, so we're just not going to. And that, I love that so very much. I love those two chapters. So around that point, it felt like everything was very self-contained, but then the spiral starts expanding, and it's expanding its range of influence, and other people get dragged in as these reporters and aid workers are setting in because the town has been isolated and no one's getting communication out, so people are coming in to see what's going on, but now they get trapped. And you get bordering on cannibalism as people turn into snails and they're starving because weather patterns have caused all the houses to be destroyed except for these old rickety row houses that we introduced previously. So everyone is crammed into there. There's no space. Their bodies are fusing together. And if they move too fast, they make whirlwinds and gusts and all this that further destroy things. So they have to move slowly. But then people turn into snails. And then people are starving because they got no food, because there's too many people, no food coming in anymore. So they're like, let's just eat the snail people. And they do. And it's disturbing. And I'm like, Junji Ito, are you okay? The girl's brother gets turned into a snail, and she has to risk everything to get him to safety before these people who are turning into spirals come after them. And then the row houses expand because her group is leaving in one direction. They meet up with a group who left before them coming in the opposite direction. Time, space is becoming warped. And then it seems like they've only been gone a day or two, but many years must have passed in the center of town as the row houses have expanded to make a giant spiral to connect everything and completely take over the town. The fact that this has built so much in so short time, I love it. So they get through and they're just looking for her parents because she can't leave. She's lost her brother. She doesn't know how to save him. He's turned into a snail. And now she just wants to find her parents. And it's like, oh, I heard about this pottery person who was using the clay from Dragonfly Pond to make pottery and all that. The pottery's the art of the spiral. And she's like, no, that's my father. I need to go find him. And she gets there, her and the boyfriend. And I really do like her and the boyfriends. Like, they are very sweet together. They're always there to stand up for each other, protect each other. We didn't have much in character development, but what we did was through their relationship, and I genuinely wanted them to be okay. And the pond, Dragonfly Pond, whatever it's called, is completely drained, and it's just like a spiral staircase going down. And together they go down, and they're seeing these corpses of people who tried to make the journey but couldn't. They're saying, take me with you, take me to the center. And she's like, no, I can't. I don't have the strength. And then he falls. The boyfriend falls. My actual heart, I didn't want anything to happen to them. And she's racing down and she gets to him. And they're in the temple, the city. It's all made of spirals. This is a living entity that has built from the tanners. Like, I think this has just been going on for generations. Every time the spiral goes dormant, eventually it will reactivate, and this process all starts over again. And they just lie together and hold each other's hands as they become the spiral and infuse together. And then once they're gone, the spiral ends, everything fills out, and they're just waiting for like the next group of towns to come and build atop of them. And oh, it was creepy and weird, and I loved it. Yeah, so 10 out of 10, masterpiece, did enjoy it. Is this overhyped? I mean, if this had more character development and character relationships, it would be flawless. but for the nightmare experience that it was, yes, highly recommend. Love this so very much. Seriously, has anyone checked on him though? Junji Ito? Has anyone checked in on him recently? He's okay, right? Because this story, I'm questioning if he's okay. All right, next we have Remina. I'm gonna go with Remina. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but mostly criticisms for this one. However, pros, it is gorgeous. It is cosmic horror. It is terrifyingly beautiful. And it has a planet trying to eat Earth, and it looks terrifying on that planet's surface. So that's really, really cool. So really cool elements, really cool action. Just I wish it had more of a plot than 250 pages of just psychologically and physically torturing this one girl. Way too many overtones or undertones, one of it, of sexual violence towards this woman. Nothing graphic in that sense, just other than torturing her. Like, we start with her crucifixion, and then we flash back to a planet had been discovered coming through a wormhole thing, and the scientist who discovered it named it after his daughter, Remina, and she's immediately, like, thrust into the limelight of celebrity status. She becomes, I think it's an actress or singer, probably an actress, I can't remember. And everyone is obsessed with her and love her. And I'm sure there's commentary there on celebrity status and how you view celebrities to be responsible or knowledgeable on other, like, world events. So this planet is going through space. We're going more or less into spoilers, but quite honestly, it's just apocalyptic survive slash torture. So there's not too much of a plot to spoil. I'll leave out the big twists. But so she is going about her life. Planet is moving through space, and as the planet's moving through space, the stars and planets, moons, and everything around it is being destroyed. It's devouring them. And then all of a sudden, the planet is moving towards Earth. So the people are freaking out because, hey, this planet's going to eat Earth. What do we do? And I guess you can go into, there might be some commentary there on how insignificant we are in the universe. We're a speck, and we're nothing in the grand scheme of the universe. So being completely desperate and needing to be in control, they are convinced by this cult that Remina is bringing the planet there. So the person is calling in the namesake planet. Why? No one, it makes zero sense, but they're convinced if they sacrifice her that the planet will leave them alone. So in a desperate attempt to have some kind of control of the disaster that's about to befall them, they storm her home, attack her father as well because he needs to be sacrificed as well, and then it's just more and more pages of brutalization towards this one woman, and she's a non-existent character. I don't know if she has barely any lines of dialogue. She's just running. People are trying to keep her safe. People are obsessed with her, trying to protect her, and then people are obsessed with killing her. And there's jealousy around her, and, like, if I can't have you, no one can. And then it gets bleak as, like, the planet comes up, physics goes out the window because it licks the Earth, like, a tongue comes out, licks the Earth like a lollipop, sends it flying, changes its rotation, and then the gravity of the big giant monster planet versus the gravity of the Earth collide. I feel like we all would just go splat, but apparently we're flying through the air in zero gravity. It's ridiculous. And then you get the cosmic horror of the planetary surface as this apocalyptic world is just, like, everything. I don't want to go into the endings, but yeah, bleak, depressing, and then maybe a little hopeful at the end, but I could have done without, like, nearly 250 pages of just torturing this one girl. Conclusion: the creepy atmosphere of the planet makes up for pretty much all my criticism, so I do recommend this one for no other reason than the art of the monstrous cannibal-like planet. Finally, we have Venus in the Blind Spot, and this is a collection of short stories. I don't recommend this one because there are, like, 2 or 3 stories in here that I actually liked, and I'm pretty sure they're all in other works that I'm pretty sure I own over there that I just haven't got to those collections yet. But we'll start with its namesake. So in the middle of the story, you have Venus in the Blind Spot, and I can't remember if I read this one first or Remina, but one of them, and that probably made me hate the other one more just because, again, we have obsession and we have the torture of a woman who has no agency or control and just ends in violence towards them. So in Venus in the Blind Spot, the short story within the story collection that's named after, you have a UFO-centric group, and all the men in this group are obsessed with the one woman in this group, and they're obsessed with her, violently obsessed with her. And all of a sudden, she starts disappearing. They've been abducted by aliens, apparently. And ever since that moment, whenever she gets close, she disappears. They can talk to her, but they can't see her. Only from a distance they can see her. And they're like, oh my god, I'm so in love with you and I can't see you. I can't hold the hand of the woman I love. Please hold my hand. Where are you? And chasing out violently, trashing her house. And she's like, I'm scared. Leave me alone. What's happening? Why are you saying you love me? I thought we were all just friends. UFO hunting here. And then more things happen. Violence ensues. And it's just like, spoiler for the ending of this one. I'm not giving away the twist, but it ends with her death and most likely assault. So did not enjoy that. That just put a bad taste in my mouth, and I don't know if it's because I just read Remina before, because I think I read that one first. Like I was getting exhausted by those kind of themes. Really shouldn't have read this all in one day. The first story in this collection, though, I highly recommend. Billions Alone. I want this developed into a full short story, not just this little tiny, really, really short story, or a movie or some kind of adaptation. And maybe it already got one, I should check. But Billions Alone. We start with this guy. Actually, we start with gruesome murder. So, dog walker is going on a walk, sees two bodies stitched together with like fishing wire, and it's gross, and I love it. And then we learn a bit this like kind of like cult group who are abducting people, but they're abducting later on in large numbers, so everyone got to isolate and quarantine, and I feel this would be a fantastic one to have read during quarantine. I wish I had. The main character, he has been self-imposed isolating for like 7 years of his life for no reason. He had no reason to. He just hasn't left his room in like 7 years, and his mom's knocking on the door being like, you really should come out. I mean, there's a nice girl here who's coming for the class reunion. She wants to see you. Can I let her in? Can you talk to her? It's like, oh yeah, I'll go talk to her, because he was in love with her at one point in time. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking, if my parents let me stay in my room for 7 years and do nothing but read and watch TV, I'd be fine with that. I don't need to see people. But you get a lot of conversation, well, not a lot. You get some conversation on the necessity of human connection and being together. And then when they are forced to isolate, because again, people are being abducted in mass and then found strung together, because people are better together, all over the town, the serial killer thing going on is gross and terrifying, but then you have like the need to see people, so he takes the risk of going to her only for the ending to happen. And the ending is my one complaint, because it just ends so abruptly. I guess there was I don't know if he didn't know how to end it, but it's just over. And I'm like, oh, I want more. I need that story developed more, because it's a cool concept. It has some nice themes in there, especially about like social connections, and I really want that one developed more so badly. I really, really, really like that one. The next story is A Human Chair, which is Junji Ito's interpretation slash sequel slash spin-off slash whatever of a different author, Rampo's story. So I have his collection, and I have read The Human Chair, and I love The Human Chair. There's somewhere I got a video, me reading that, I'm pretty sure. I need to read this collection of his, because I really love his writing. But The Human Chair, I don't have much to say about it. It takes the classic spin, it kind of changes things up a little bit, and it's kind of like after Rampo's story takes place, more or less, and it's a guy telling his story. Carpenter made a chair, lived in it, got bought by a family, he's terrorizing the family, becomes obsessed with the wife, thing happens, and then Junji Ito takes his own twist on the ending, as another author is in a furniture store talking to this man, and he's telling her about this chair, which he then opens up, and more stuff happens. So the ending is good, the story is good, the art is good. Obviously, he didn't miss with this one, but it's I got nothing to say about it. Another story from Rampo that Junji Ito told was an unearthly love or something like that. Yeah, an unearthly love. Guy gets married. Wife had heard he is cruel, but he's actually really nice. Wife thinks he has a mistress. Not quite. He is in love with something else, and that's all there is. Like, there's nothing to the story. I got zero to say about it. Artwork's good. Artwork's always good. Then you have The Licking Woman, which is just a woman with a very large, gross tongue, and if she licks you, you're basically poisoned and you die. And then some girls after her because, hey, you killed my boyfriend and my dog, so I need to go after you. And then it's just gross and weird. I got nothing else to say. It's just gross and weird. The next story, Master Umezz and Me, is basically, like, might be part biography kind of thing inspired, but Junji Ito meets his like idol and how he got into manga writing. I got nothing to say. I didn't understand the majority of what was being talked about in this work because honestly, Uzumaki was the first one I read. I read one chapter of one of Junji Ito's stories previously before this when I was in undergrad. So this is really just my introduction to his work, so I don't understand really anything that happened in that story. The next story, How Love Came for Professor Kirida. I like this one. I like the artwork. So I love the artwork in all of them, but I especially loved in this one. There's a parrot, and the parrot is creepy as hell. So there's this professor. He's rude. He's a jerk. There's a girl who's in love with him, and he rejects her because any love that is presented to him, he returns with cruelty. And they're both authors, and she's trying to impress him with her writing and her work. And then she eventually gives him like a love story in the form of a story, like her love for him presented as like a novel short story, and he tears it up and puts it in the parrot's cage to catch the droppings. Like, you're pathetic. Love is pointless. Don't give me this. You're untalented hack. Like, leave. And she runs out in tears. And there's also a character who's a priest, and he had convinced her to give him that story, and now he feels bad that he gave her such bad advice because this man's just cruel to her. He presents it as being truthful to her. She attempts suicide, but I don't think she actually dies. And then later on, the professor calls the priest back to his home, and because he's being haunted, and he's having a full-on mental break, and the imagery ghost of this woman haunting him, delight. Love the imagery. And then we learn more about the priest's past and how that comes into play. But the parrot starts mocking him and taunting him and saying like stuff like, I love you, because it's possessed by the spirit. And it's so good. It should be longer. I feel all these stories are just too short because it sets up such an interesting premise, a cool, creepy idea, and then it's just over. And I'm like, I'm sad. I want more. I'm pronouncing this one wrong. I'm pronouncing it very wrong. Let me try. It's like the Enigma of something. Enigma of Amigara Fault? Amigara. Well, that one might be it. Amigara Fault. Let's go with that one. So this one is a classic, and it is the one that I did read in the past. And I love it. I love it so very much. So you have an earthquake that caused like the rocks to slide and a fault to appear, and there's these human-shaped holes in this wall, and it's put on television as people are announcing and saying this discovery, and people are seeing the holes and being like, that one is mine. That one is exactly shaped like me. And they travel to this fault line place as the researchers are there being like, I seen one, this is for me. And they're going inside it, and no one can follow them in, and they're getting trapped, and no one knows what's happening to them. And this guy also seen one on TV, or he's drawn to it. I don't think he's seen his. He's drawn to it. And he's like, I had to come here. I seen this article, this news on TV. I had to come see it for myself. He meets this woman. She's like, I feel the same way, but you don't understand. I seen one of those holes, and that one is for me. And they had witnessed people go into the holes and get lost and trapped in there. So he's like, no, you can't go in there. She's like, but I have to. Again, this obsession that Junji Ito displays so well in his stories. So the guy uses like some smaller rocks to cover in the human-shaped hole that's meant for her. And she's like, see, if I block it off, you can't go in. You don't have to. And he stays with her at night saying like, no, just don't like resist the urge to go in there. But when he wakes up, she's of course gone. It's unburied, and she's gone through. And then he's distraught that he's lost her. He drops the flashlight. It shines on the one that is meant for him. And we had learned in a dream that... I'm going into too much detail. I'm sorry. But we're going into too much detail for this one. So in the past, So he's having a dream of him in the past being like a prisoner who has committed a crime and he's about to be punished for it in like the worst possible way. And this hole was carved for you, and then as you go in, it's made in a way that you can't backtrack. You have to only go forward, and slowly the neck and the arms and everything just stretches as you should die. Like your neck should snap, but you just don't. And then they find on the other end these odd shapes, and they see the bodies having pressed through in the odd forms that they've taken, the eyes and the teeth being the only thing recognizable. Oh, it is creepy as hell. It's a cool imagery. It's such a good story. I love it. This has just it's just a good little short story. It got a nice little bit with character dynamics. It got just enough explanation in that little dream flashback of what these things are, but still leaving so much unknown, like why, how. It's so cool. I love it. This one was really good. This one was worth it. The next story is The Sad Tale of the Principal Post, and it's like 4 pages, so 2 pages double-sided. What was the point of this? I liked it a lot, but what the hell? Why? So, family hears their father screaming. They go to the little crawl space and find him under the main post of the house. Wife is just like, how the hell did you get under here? And he's like, it's a long story, I can't tell you. Well, okay, well, I'll go get help. No, don't go get help, because if you do, they're going to have to move this post and the house could collapse. And this is our beautiful home. So just leave me here to die. And I will support the post with my own dead body. And the mom is just like, okay, all right, kids, let's go back upstairs. Leave father some candles. He's going to die down there. And that's what happens. And we never learn how he got under the post. And I'm sure there's commentary there about like the father's role being to support the family and provide the home and protect them. But I'm just assuming he did something stupid and was kind enough not to take his family down with him. That's all I got. So weird, kind of cool. I like these literally 4 pages. So weird, just randomly in this book. But the last one I think is my favorite of all the short stories in this collection. It's called Keepsake. So I think this like former samurai noble guy, his first wife has died and he has remarried his mistress. And then all of a sudden they hear this crying, and it's been 9 months since the first wife was buried. They dig her up because the crying is coming from her grave and find that she has given birth since passing 9 months later. And they're like, yep, that sometimes happens. I'm like, are you kidding me? So they take in the child, but obviously new wife, who is now pregnant, refuses to raise it, gives the child to her handmaid. The child grows up into this corpse-looking child, and he's really, really creepy. And then the second wife is punishing the handmaid and the child because he has scared her child. And then the handmaid girl is just like, I know the truth. I know you were the father's mistress and you plan to together to poison the first wife so you could take her place because she couldn't have children, but I know something you don't know. And the second wife's like, what the hell do you know? And she's just like, I know that the conception of child number 1 did not take place before her death. It actually happened after the body had reanimated and asked for a child, and he had given it to her. And the second wife's like, oh my God. And then the son is just creepy as hell. We assume she had a heart attack and or was murdered. We don't know. Second wife is buried. The father marries the handmaid girl, and then you hear crying from the grave once again. And I'm just like, what a weird situation. This is so creepy. I love it. So that one I really, really liked. That one was good. That one was good. So in conclusion, is Junji Ito okay? I don't think he is. Someone needs to check on this man. His stories are hit or miss. I like the longer ones. And I probably shouldn't binge a whole whack of them all at once because the themes kind of do get repetitive, as a lot of them just kind of deal with obsession and violence toward women. But honestly, there weren't actually that many of them that had violence toward women. It was just the fact that I read a very, very long one, and then there was one sprinkled throughout the next one. So I'm like, could have done without that. But overall, really loved this. Really loved his work. All right, I will check in later. Bye.